Welcome back, everybody. I have the honor and pleasure of speaking with Pancho Demmings. You may know Pancho from NCIS. You may know him from The Fugitive. You may know him from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You've seen him in a bunch of places. And I am wearing my Cubs shirt partially for him because he's spent some time in Chicago. Please welcome to the program, Mr. Demmings.
Thank you very much, Alan.
It's my pleasure. And yes, I know you spent, I think, 4 years or so in Chicago.
Yeah, love Chicago. Chicago's my kind of town. I moved there from Minneapolis, from originally, because a buddy of mine said, "Oh, you need to come down there." Buddy of mine, I'm a name drop, Harry Lennox, good brother, thank you. And so I came down and started, hitting the boards and figuring out how to do the acting game. So Chicago was a very fun town, very great town for me. So I'm very appreciative. Thank you, Chicago.
Oh, well, Chicago loves you, and Chicago is awesome. It's my home. I came here as a kid at 15. Yeah, I believe I was 15 when I came here, and well, now I've lived here for 30 years. So there you go.
Telling on yourself.
Sorry?
I say you're telling on yourself. You're putting those numbers in.
Yeah, everybody knows I'm 45. I have nothing to worry about. So yeah, based on what you just mentioned, and kind of in my research, I didn't see where your acting started. I know you graduated with an economics and business degree, but then you decided to pursue acting. So was acting, did it begin in Chicago for you?
Well, yeah, I started in Minneapolis, and when I decided I needed to go to the next level, I had to decide whether I wanted to go to New York or whether I wanted to go straight to LA. And I thought Chicago was the perfect place to go, and so that's what I did. But initially, I'm from a big family. I'm one of 12, so brothers and 4 sisters. And for like Easter, we'd all have to go up on stage in front of our whole family and quote scripture and whatnot. And at 4 years old, I kind of had the feeling like, wow, this is kind of cool. And then when I was probably about 7 years of age, this director for this choir, the Metropolitan Boys Choir, her name is B. Hasselman now. She still has a choir all these years later. She came and asked to speak to me about whether I sung or not, because I sung in the church choir. So she got me to be a part of her choir, and I loved it. We would do like performances and homes and just different venues. And in those homes and in these performances, we do vignettes from like The Music Man, Oliver, South Pacific. So I learned to dance and sing and be in front of an audience. And but then I didn't know if I was going to pursue it, and went to school, economics and business. But the whole time I'd been doing plays, writing plays, performing plays at this church where I was kind of working with the youth at. And then after I graduated, I was working this job that I wasn't crazy about. A friend told me about somebody who was looking for actors to actually audition for this industrial film. And I was like, sure, why not? And I worked the job, worked a few hours, and they paid me some good money. I was like, wait a minute, I can make money. So that kind of was the thing that got me going. And then I worked in Minneapolis, had the opportunity to do some great theater, work with some great casting directors there. And then after that, I moved to Chicago. So that's kind of the progression that got me there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've spoken with some actors from Minneapolis and Minnesota in general, and there is a very nice acting community there.
Yeah, a lot of talented people, and we're good people out there, nice Minnesotan people out there. So, a lot of people ended up in the movie Fargo from Minneapolis. So,
right, that's true. Very cool. Let's before we get to Chicago, I wanted to ask you. You've mentioned NBC, and I, doing a little bit of research, I saw what type of role NBC really had for you in your life. As I think when you were younger, your mom moved the whole family out into a predominantly white neighborhood. So that based again on what the bits and pieces that I read, that was not an easy transition for you. Can you talk about what effect that it had on your life?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were literally the neighborhood. We were the first Black children and family to move into that neighborhood when I was 7 years old. And then we were among the first Black children to go to an all-white school. So it was contentious. And so, to put it mildly, I got my share of fighting in during that period of time. And so at the time, it was turbulent, and it's kind of interesting to be at this point in history now where these things have come full circle. So some of the same things that happened then are apparently happening now, and worse, that we're an even more divided nation. But at the same time, we were just kids. And so I had kids who in the first grade, we were duking it up. But by the time we got to the sixth grade, we were the best of buddies. And that's kind of something that I always take forward with me, is that as people, once we get to realize that we're not these horrible people that we make each other out to be, and there are assumptions that are made about different groups of individuals, just because we don't have the time, or we don't actually get the chance to spend time with those people, it makes us have misgivings about those people. So some of these friends, and they're still my friends today, from elementary school to high school, junior high school, and college, all still my friends today. So, it's proof that we can put this thing together and work together as a community at large.
Yeah, because people are people. I know I'm cliche, and I know I'm weird because I don't think of people in terms of color or sexual orientation or their gender. It's people are people. You're either a nice person or you're not a nice person. That's kind of how I was raised. Maybe it's because, again, I grew up in a homogenous society. I came from Ukraine, and everybody there was white or some variation of it. And you had people from the different parts of the Soviet Union, and I saw the discrimination, but then I felt the discrimination personally as a Jewish kid. I wasn't religious, but talking about kind of the fights as kids, that's where it started for me. I felt different because I was labeled as a Jew. I didn't know what it meant. I had no religious understanding of it. It was just people were treating me different. I couldn't understand why. So I came from that, and maybe because of that, I try to treat everybody, based on their merits and not what they look like, maybe. But coming to this country, it was definitely a wake-up call for me, because here you have a lot more diversity, and some people look at it like me. I look at it as cool. I get to know all sorts of people. Other people look at it differently. So I'm sorry that you've had those experiences, but I'm glad that people are people, and you are able to work things out, and now you're friends.
Yeah, and just to kind of give a little plug for Minneapolis, because at the time when all this stuff happened with George Floyd, and literally this happened at a pharmacy that I've been in 100 times. I was there probably 2 months prior to that happening, and it happened only 1 block away from where we have our community celebration every year annually. And so, it really hit home when all of that happened. But some of the news and whatnot kind of showed the community to be violent and whatnot, and it's not that at all. And I remember seeing other news, like local stuff, that was showing people coming with food and bags of groceries and cleaning the community and working to restore what this upheaval had actually happened. And so so all we see in news is all of these violent, quote, violent people tearing up the community. But we love our community, and we definitely want to see about building that back up, and that is happening. So
good. It has to. Again, I know it's a very difficult time for everybody right now. Country is really divided. I'm on every possible line, but that's not really what America is about. America is a very generous and beautiful country, and people genuinely are good people, and we have a lot more in common. So I hope once this kind of thing tones down, we can get back to the community that we really are.
Yeah, well, there's an old saying that it's the squeaky wheel that gets the oil, and so sometimes we see all of this, and it makes it seem like there's like so many people that feel that way towards one another. But the truth is that we would not have come to the place that we have with the rights that I have in this country, that at one point in my life, my forefathers did not have. And so I think the majority of people are of that ilk of like, let's move America forward and not back. And so, and I think that that's something that will play itself out over the next few years. So I'm excited about the prospects of that.
Me too. Again, let's just treat people as equals. It doesn't matter where they're coming from or what they look like or what they choose to believe.
Or what, you
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that part.
What their gender is. So, all of those decisions that we make that keep us at odds with each other. So
yeah, it really kind of goes to say more about the people themselves, right? Because I'm white, right? So okay, I'm white, but then I have my experience of being discriminated against because of my, I'm not even going to call it faith because I'm not religious. It's because of my heritage. So I experienced that, and that made me, understanding. I am a part of the I'm a part of the acting community, and in the acting community, we have LGBTQ, we have all sorts of people, and none of us really care because we're all just we're all weird, and we all love it, and we're all accepting of each other. So like for me, all of that is normal. I want to get the country to a place where it's all normal for everybody. And I remember I remember now the movie comes, the movie name escapes me at the moment, but I'll come back to it. There was a movie about a white senator, and he had he had something that happened to him that kind of made him question everything, and then eventually he got to a point where he was asked on television, what do you think of whites and blacks? Because at that point he had a black girlfriend. He said, well, I think everybody should just, have sex and get rid of color altogether. And I
said, that's a solution.
it's a solution. I don't think it's the solution, but this is a movie that came out, 20, 30 years ago. So I remember watching it and thinking it's an interesting idea of how we again bring everybody back together. It was a sarcastic film that brought up real questions. But anyway, I'm really hoping, I'm like you, I hope that things will get not just back to where they were, but allow us to grow as a society and move forward.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who tends to hope against hope, and some people just go, oh, that's horrible, it's not going to get me better. I never believe that way. I think that life has a way of balancing itself out, and I always say water will always find its own levels. I think that as the pendulum swings to one side, it finds a way to make its way back, and I think that in the middle, people tend to settle and find what's the best and the truest and most pure things that come out of the human species. And so I do have a lot of hope, and I just think that it's swung too far one way, that now it will balance itself out.
I believe so as well, and that type of optimism, I think, is a really helpful trait as you went through your life. Again, talking about some of the experiences when you were a little kid, and then moving forward, going through NCIS, which we'll touch upon in a minute. I know everybody watching the show wants us to talk about NCIS. We will, I promise. And it's been a trait of yours that I think you've got to utilize. It has not been easy, but you being an optimist, I think, served you really well throughout your life and throughout your career in general.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who came up with a very strong support system. Again, I might have mentioned that my parents were both ministers, but they weren't overbearing. They kind of put good principles in us, and all of us, aside from my parents, I had my family, my brothers and my sisters, who I couldn't have asked for anything. When I always say that I hit the jackpot, I hit the lottery when it came to family, because we love each other very much, and we look after one another. And so I think that because I came from that kind of thing, and I think even coming up in those adverse situations where, oftentimes I was the only Black person in the room, and sometimes I got feelings from people that way, my parents taught me very well to own who I was and not to be about being black, black person, but being
Mhm.
about a person. So I often say I'm a person before I'm an ethnicity. And so people find themselves getting caught up in being a color instead of a being. And that's not my hang up. And that's more about people who have an issue with the color of my skin than me, because that's their problem and not mine. Well,
Yeah,
it's our, but we'll work together to get it resolved if in fact people are willing to do that.
and that's the key point, right? Are they looking past their own kind of upbringing and some prejudices and a way of categorizing people just by how you see them,
Mhm.
as opposed to treating them for who they really are? So yeah, it's again, it's about education, it's about culture, it's a societal issues that hopefully we continue going through. In terms of diversity, again, you've been in the business for a while. Have you seen things move forward? Have you seen the steps kind of take place, or not really?
I think that, it's contingent upon, I mean, realistically, I have my own little microcosm of how I see the world. And even as a black actor, there's certain actors that I compete with that we are seen a certain way. So it may not be as diverse because the pool that is there in roles that we're competing for
Mhm.
tend to be those roles that have the ability to cross over outside of what people are normally seeing black
Yeah,
people at. And so I believe that there's advancement in the business. I believe that we are moving things forward, but I also know that there's other things to see. There's other places to go. And I think that for me personally, um, it's funny because I tend to be fortunate enough to have people from other country oftentimes are the ones that hire me, or what ends up happening is that if people write a role, quote, black, then it's probable I'm not going to get that role. But when people just write a role and say, well, we can actually cast a person of color in that. And I would have times where I go to an audition and I'd be like, there'd be me and there'd be 9 white brothers. And I'm like, at first I was like, okay, what am I doing here? But then I realized that was an homage. I'm giving love to the casting directors who had the foresight to say, I know that you said you want this, but just in case, you want this, or, maybe it was that the producers were saying we could use a person of color in this role or in
mhm,
that role. So I learned to stop doing their work and just do my work going into a room. So basically, I do believe that we're making progress, but I do think that there's more progress to be made, and other ethnicities need to be represented too. So I like the fact that Asian cultures are starting to get more work, and
mhm.
people are starting, you know, broaden that base when you have movies that come out like, I don't know, Black Panther, and to see all of these people of color and this movie gross as much money as it did worldwide. That's saying that we are doing some things, but we also need leadership in roles behind the camera, not just in front of the camera. And that is what gives us more diversity when you have producers and
Yeah,
executive producers and casting. The more we broaden that, the more inclusive we become.
that's true. So I'm glad you're seeing signs. From my very limited perspective, I see more and more inclusion in the projects that I've been involved in, which is a good sign for me. But again, it's a very limited perspective, so I always want to ask people what they see in their experiences. So who, and this is just my curiosity and for fun, who did you find yourself competing mostly with from your kind of group of actors?
Well, well, before we were on camera, we were talking about this person that you interviewed,
Yep.
Russell Hornsby. He is a person that I would go out against quite a bit. And believe it or not, at one point I was auditioning against Anthony Mackie, who, it's hard to believe. I mean, with the roles that he's playing now.
Hold on
And
a second.
just,
Why, I'm gonna stop you there. Why is that hard to believe? You're a
well,
very talented actor. I believe
it
it.
was, it wasn't that per se, but to see him start. And I remember I went to it was a screening of these like independent like short films, and he was in one of the films, and I was talking to him, and and then to see that kind of happen where he went to that next level, and but other people like Shamar Moore and Michael Jai White, the people you would see in a room on any given day, and it's like, hey man, how you doing? I haven't seen you long. It's good to see you. Congratulations, I'm glad you got that. So, sometimes people think it's competitive, and it is. I mean, but the way we look at it is that if it's your role, then it's yours. If it's mine, it's mine. And as long as they do great work with the roles, then we in turn have an opportunity because it makes people more inclusive. They're like, and if he's working,
Yeah,
that means there's a role I might be able to get. So no.
it's true. And you've mentioned a lot of the people, and there are a lot of avenues. Me as a host, I immediately am thinking of, okay, you've mentioned Michael J. White, you've mentioned you mentioned Mackie. Both of these guys, know martial arts. So do you. You're a boxer. You're a Jeet Kune Do, practitioner. So
Yeah.
Michael, when I am looking at Michael's career, and again, I've enjoyed him in everything that I've seen him in, but he's found his niche. I'm not sure that he wants to be in. Okay, maybe that's a wrong way of saying it because I'm sure he loves the martial arts genre, but breaking into the mainstream, it was more difficult for him, even though he's a wonderful dramatic actor. I still don't know why he's not getting more mainstream roles. Russell certainly did, and Mackie did as well. So it was interesting kind of to look at all of these things, but yeah, I can see why they would bring you in, knowing your background.
yeah, and Michael, it's like you were saying about with Michael. And Michael, he's such a talented actor, and I'm gonna say this, Michael, but one time, him and a buddy of mine, Randy Goodwin, I'm saying these names, actual names, they played a practical joke on me, and I didn't know I was being punked, basically, where Michael was acting like this ominous person, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Because I'm thinking, I can't run from this guy. I probably can't handle this guy. What am I gonna do? But then after the end of it, my buddy Randy says, now let me introduce you to the real Michael Jai White. And they both start cracking up. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. So to see that fun side, and when you're so used to seeing that seriousness that he does, so he is, and most actors have that kind of versatility to them. And so it's just a matter of people giving them opportunity to do something else. So
that's true. Very cool. Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate that kind of going off for a bit. Let's talk NCIS because again, you've done 15 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, of NCIS. You were in the first season. Then Gerald disappeared, and there's been all sorts of wondering of whatever happened. I think you addressed that actually just shortly ago of what you thought. For those people who have not had a chance to follow up on that, let's get into it if you don't mind. Because from an acting perspective, to me, it's very appropriate, and I want to ask you questions after this. But what happened and why your character, who was instrumental in season 1, didn't really appear until one or two episodes, I think in season 3 or 4.
Yeah. Well, I came on in the very beginning of the show, and I'm very grateful to Don Belisari and Chaz Johnson, who brought me in, Susan Bluestein, who was the casting person, brought me through, and all the producers of the show that, gave me an opportunity to work in this project that who knew would grow to be as grand as it was. And, to be able to get to work with Mark Harmon and David McCallum, who I was a little kid watching him do stuff, and who would have known I'd one day have the opportunity to work with this person every day, Michael Weatherly and all of them, Paul Correct. It was just an amazing thing. But in the beginning of the show, they were still kind of framing how the show was going to go, where they wanted to go with the show. We were working pretty long hours, and there were forced calls, and we were sometimes looping like 2 days before an episode was going to air. It was just finding the legs of the show. And so, as is with every show, I mean, I have had a great opportunity. I was able to do those episodes in the first season, and then they kind of decided, well, what are we going to do with this character? So I wasn't on the second season at all, and I get a call from my agent saying that they want to bring me back, and so I come back, and even in the episode, Gerald says, he'll be back to work in upcoming, and that just didn't flesh out. Now, for whatever reasons, as you know, and as other actors know, sometimes productions decide to go different ways, and as a result, Brian had an opportunity to step in, and it's been there ever since. But whatever reasons, and whatever, I don't know all the behind scene reasons why I didn't end up back on the show, but I always say that if they want Daryl to end up back in those, I probably could still get into those scrubs and the field coveralls. I probably could still do that. So, but it's just the way that the shows chose to go, and that's to the powers that be. It's something that I wish I could be the one that says, okay, let's bring Gerald back, but that's to the powers that be.
Well, listen, they're in the 18th year, so I think it's time to bring Gerald back. My personal opinion, Sean Murray, who was lovely and who was on the show, if you're watching this, please put some things in into the producers.
I was like, that was kind of like the end of my spiel, so I didn't really get to know Sean. I got to say hello to him a few times, but that was it. So unfortunately, I didn't really get a chance to work with him. So who knows?
And then from the acting perspective, that's where again your positivity and being an optimist comes in. Of being in that show and then for whatever reason not being a part of it anymore. That's a tough pill to swallow. And around the industry, I'm sure there were questions of, why, what happened? Is it his acting? Is that his, persona in terms of how he behaves on set? Because we all know that, okay, certain stars can be divas, but for the most part, you're hired because you're a professional and you're somebody who people enjoy being on set with. So, when this thing happens, did you have to deal with any blowback, or did you have to try to figure it out or explain yourself of, hey, this was not my idea, this was not my acting, I don't know, just a storyline, and let's move on?
Well, of course you always wonder,
right,
why, you're reading the script and you say, wait a minute, it says that Gerald gets shot here. So you're always kind of wondering what's going on, and when those decisions are made, you always hope that other decisions will be made to bring it back or move it forward. But I just knew it was time to just kind of accept it. And if in fact they came back around to it and gave me that opportunity again, then I would be more than willing to do so. And so I'm just one of those people who I'm very grateful. And I remember at one point I was dealing with some stuff in my personal life with my family and whatnot. And I was trying to work out some stuff with the show. And I remember I wanted to ask Mark about something. And, Mark is a very, very busy person. And he was on the set from sun up to sundown, And so for those of us who support a cast that come in and do our little bit and are happy to do our part, and then we go home. Yeah. And I was there for long hours, but to think that he's there as long as he did. So I had kind of got a question to him through one of the producers, and I'm up in Portland visiting and whatnot, visiting family, and all of a sudden my phone rings and it was Mark, and I was like, hey, Mark. And so, I got to ask him some things, and he gave me a real blunt and very, very straightforward opinion. He said, well, this is what I think, but you can take my advice or not, but this is what I believe. And so I was I was happy that he actually took the time to give me a call. And then like with Don Rosario was enough in this moment, I sent him an email about some stuff, and this man got back to me that evening. It's like 1:38 in the morning. He sent a email back to me. So to think that, doing all of that busy stuff, that they take the time to do that kind of stuff, it was impressive to me. So yeah, I mean, of course you want to continue, of course you want to be there, but
Yeah.
that's, like I said, that's up to the powers that be.
Yeah, and again, it speaks to your character of putting it behind you, moving forward, and continuing your career. And you've done some great things after that, and you've been in iconic projects after. I looked around, I couldn't find a ton of information, but the show that you were on in 2015, now the name escapes me because I didn't write it down, but it was a cop show, you and another gentleman. What happened to it? I couldn't see what was going on there.
Sorry about that. This thing keeps.
It's probably Mark Harmon. If it's Mark Harmon, pick it up.
Tyler and Borelli. It's a show that it's a group that producing group that I was a part of that was started by Clem Jeffries, very, very good friend of mine, and with Next Up Films. And he just came up with this idea. We were writing, we were fleshing things out, trying to find, produce our own projects. And he just came up with this idea of these two cops just writing the beat in the short format, 3 to 4 minute beats. And so he wrote a couple episodes and everybody went crazy. So we just started shooting them, and we shot a whole season. And so we were looking forward to continue to shoot some more. But fortunately, my buddy Jimmy Giannini, one of my best friends, beautiful heart, was my partner. He was Borelli. I was Tyler. He passed away, and so we kind of had a, we're still kind of looking at possibilities of how we can move it forward, because people like it and it's a fun format. So in fact, this bracelet right here, this is what Jimmy's, my little homage to Jimmy. So that's something that we are still kind of writing projects and trying to, like that particular one, move it forward and see how we can shift it and move it forward. So.
Yeah, it looked fun, so that's why I wanted to find more information. I couldn't find anything, so thank you for. I'm sorry it happened, but for filling me in. I hope you can pick it up. Maybe kind of this downtime is when you have a chance to look at it and see what you can do.
Yeah, we kind of kick some things around, kick some ideas around, and see what we can do, and we'll see what we can come up with. No promises yet, but we're brainstorming.
So, and that kind of brings us to this COVID time. What have you found yourself doing during this time of a slowdown for everybody?
Well, for me personally, I've been writing quite a bit. I have some projects that I'm writing and rewriting, bouncing them off, and talking to some friends / producers that are actually working with me to get some of these things out. So I have a pilot that I'm writing for a series, which I'm not gonna say any names quite yet because I'm still kind of developing stuff. I have a short film that I've written. I have a couple of films that I'm actually, one is almost finished, the other one I'm still framing it. So, and looking at some of my friends to produce. And in the meantime, I've worked with a couple of friends who are writers, producers, whatnot. And that's Chris Teixeira, who actually did a film, Deadline, I was with him. And so we're looking at doing another one of those films. And he has some other things coming down the pipe that, I'm probably going to produce with him and whatnot. And then there's Sam Upton, who did another movie. It's called 12 Round Gun. It's a boxing movie, with my background. Because my brother was a professional boxer, so he was a middleweight contender. So that kind of world worked. And so Sam cast me in that and cast me in No Man's Land. And so he's got some other things that I'm hoping to collaborate with him on. His film, his company is Funkateleki Films, and so he's very talented writer, producer, director, actor. So those are some of the things that I just kind of have coming down the pike, you know, and those are the things that I'm working to develop myself. But I'm also still actively looking to get, you know, work in the business. So I don't want you casting directors to think I'm like over here doing this thing. So just putting on different hats now.
Got it. Listen, if anybody's watching this, Pancho's around. You know, right below is where you can get in touch with him. So please do so. Very cool. Before we switch to martial arts, because I definitely want to ask you questions there. In terms of, again, you've been on a lot of projects with really, really talented actors. Without, and I know you're a very kind and gentle soul, but without thinking that you'll kind of take somebody and not mention somebody else, who do you think was the best actor that you had a chance to work with?
Well, that's a mouthful, because I've been fortunate enough to work with a range of just unbelievably talented people. Like I said, just, you know, starting again with NCIS, being able to work with Mark Harmon and David McCallum. David would be working every day, and I remember one day we were in the autopsy room. He has this like IV line, and he's talking and he's doing all this stuff, and it was so natural and so real. And I said, David, how do you do that? And he said, you know how I do, Pancho? He said, literally, I say my lines hundreds of times. I'm like, okay, hundreds of times. And one time we were working, he was like, he started to give me a note, and then he stopped himself. I said, David, you can give me a note anytime. So being able to work close with those people, but then working like in The Fugitive, being able to work with Harrison Ford every day, it was just crazy. And then Tommy Lee Jones. So, I mean, there was something, because like Harrison, when you meet him, he's kind of quiet and gentle, you know, it's kind of really this, it's like, and then all of a sudden this camera starts rolling, he's Indiana Jones, this energy, and you have to, those kind of people teach you how to maintain what you're doing, because you'll be sitting there watching them. And so, and then Tommy Lee Jones, I remember there was a scene in The Fugitive where he's talking to Joe Pantoliano, and it's right before they find me underneath this bus that the train smashed into. And he's telling him to do this, and what are you doing? Well, while you're doing it, you know, go give me a donut with some sprinkles on it. And so it's just watching him work, and then they did Joe's close up, so they were shooting over Tommy's shoulder, and he's given the business to Joe Pantoliano, and they did like 5 takes, and each take, Tommy Lee Jones varied his response, which changed Joe's response. So they had 5 great takes just based off of what he did. And then, but then also I worked on I think it was an episode of Cold Case where I played a younger version of Clarence Williams III. And not everybody knows who this guy is, but he goes back to being in the Mod Squad back in the 60s. And but he plays Prince's dad in Purple Rain. And network. Are you still getting me?
Yeah, all good.
No, because it was saying that it was getting a little note on the computer. But you know, to be around him, to watch it. And so that was the thing, is that when I worked in these things, I literally, even like on NCIS, when I wouldn't really go to my trailer, I would just sit on set and watch these people do what they do. I mean, because they have years of work, and so I've been fortunate to work with some great actors. So
I get you.
So I don't have one. I'm gonna say all of them. You know.
No, it makes sense. You know, if you ask me who I think is the best actor ever, I wouldn't be able to answer that question. I can maybe give 5 or 10, but yeah, picking one would be ridiculous. And that's you know, my joy as a host. I get to ask these questions that I myself would not be able to answer.
That's it for me. I'm like, love them all. So,
I get you. So, what are your advices on set? So to people who, are going to get on set, who are doing these co-star or guest star roles, what would you suggest to them are kind of the three things that you really need to pay attention to?
well, first of all, uh, these are big productions, and being punctual, being on time,
Mhm.
and being ready are such important things. And so just making yourself available whenever they want you to, if you need to go to the trailer to go to the restroom or whatever, let an AD know that you're doing these things, and basically be prepared. Like when I first came out there, a friend of mine told me, say, if you get something substantial within the first few years of being here, you're just lucky.
Mhm.
But they said, but do what you do that well, and do that consistently. And so to just do your part and be there, and watching on set allows you to actually see where you fit into these things, because as actors we're so focused on what we're saying, but
Mhm.
it's the listening. And the greatest actors are the ones that when you watch them listening. I was just talking about this, watching Leonardo DiCaprio in a scene in Revolutionary Road in the kitchen where she's giving him the business, and he's so vulnerable, and to see that and he's just responding,
Mhm.
there's so much to learn actually being on set. So just to be there, be present, be prepared, and have fun. So I mean, that's the thing that I always say, is just have fun, because that's what we're there to do, is create this world that people can tune into, to take a departure from the world that's weighing them down. So that's what we get to do as actors. So
That's wonderful. Thank you. Last thing before we get to martial arts, you're a very private person. Uh, are you that way just because that's kind of your upbringing and that's who you are, or have you experienced reasons for you to kind of not to expand that circle on social media and everywhere else? Is that because of something that happened, or that's just who you are?
well, there are things that do happen, but of course, that doesn't mean that I have to live my life under a rock. But by nature, I tend to be a private person. When I do go out and interact with people, I have a wonderful time. Like NCIS would have fan festivals all the time, and just getting with the people and mixing with the fans, and their passion for the show, and to know how much they love what you do, I
Yeah.
feel like it's an obligation at times to be a part of that. And so part of why I haven't been as active in social media is simply because of some of the stuff in my personal life and my family, and those things. And you build and you work, and so it kind of keeps me from being so active with it. And also of late I've been writing quite a bit, but I'm starting to feel like the need to kind of put myself out a little more. So, but it's just my nature to kind of keep some things close to heart. But at the same time, as you see, I do like to talk. so, uh, so there'll probably be more of me being out there, and less private.
Good. Well, this interview is going to be up tomorrow, so everybody everybody can watch it and get to know or to reintroduce themselves to Pancho. Getting to martial arts. As soon as I saw on your resume, boxing, Jeet Kune Do, I'm like, okay, my guy. I need to talk to I need to talk to Pancho. That was not the determining reason, but it was a huge bonus for me. Um,
Cool.
where did that start for you? And do you still practice? What's going on?
Well, I would like to say that I was practicing more than I used. I mean, more now, but I'm not as much as I used to. It started out because I always loved like martial arts films and all of that, and so even as a young person, I started taking some taekwondo, and in the process, I ended up meeting this person, and his name was Ty Michael, and he was a Jeet Kune Do master. And so I met him one day, and he's like, "I'm going to train you." I'm like, "Okay." And so I had the good fortune of having this person train me one-on-one. So it's like, I mean, what more could I ask for? And so we spent years of working, and he would, and it got to the point where, you know, he was so good at it, and he just taught me so much. And one day we were sparring, and we weren't sparring, we were just kind of shadow sparring. And he was so precise with his punching, but I started feeling myself a little bit, and I got a little close, and he caught me with the punch, and it wasn't, he didn't even extend it that far, but it created so much power and energy in that short punch, and it was a reflex. And I went flying back, and he's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" But I love the discipline of it. It's just like, you know, like with acting, you have to work your chops. You get out and you know, you take a class with a person here, you know, get some coaching done. You take improv, which is, to me, one of the best things for actors to do, because I've learned a lot from doing improv. So it's kind of just working the chops. And so that's what really got me going with martial arts.
That's awesome. Again, growing up on Bruce and Jean-Claude and Jet Li, Jackie Chan. I mean, this is kind of my thing. And you know, then Michael, you know, Michael J. White, Scott Adkins, Donnie Yen, all of these guys. I just
Amazing.
I'm in love, and then I get a chance to talk to some of the martial artists on the show. So anytime I see it, it's just, you know, my eyes light up, and I I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I get it. So yeah, and I like that. I'm that way with boxing too. I actually have a big portrait of my brother that somebody painted, and he was like, at one point, he was the number 6 contender in the middleweight division. So he like real champions. He's, you know, fought Sugar Ray Seals, John McGee, the Beast McGavely. He fought Marvin Hagler. And so having someone that I grew up to look up to like that, on the levels of how he carried himself as a person, how he was to the community, and his representation of that, his amazing skills, and, you know, just what he brought to the world, kind of gave me like a blueprint, and as well as some of my other people that I look up, mentors that I look up to, that kind of help shape who and what I am. So I have a great deal of respect for those kind of disciplines. So yeah.
Boxing is wonderful. I'm not a boxer. I got hit in the face a few times, and I said, this is not for me. But
yeah, hit part, that part I wasn't too crazy, but I boxed too when I was a kid. So
I figured with your brother and with kind of, you know, all the duking it out that you were doing in school, I thought that there would be some boxing.
In fact, I was a junior Golden Glove champion, and I fought this guy, and he had many more fights than me. But I'm kind of ambidextrous, and so the first part of the fight, I'd come out and box right-handed.
Yep.
And then I'd switch over and I'd box left-handed, just to throw people off. And Marvin Hagler did that.
Yep.
But he ducked down. I went to throw a left hand, and I didn't even see it coming. He looped the right hand over, and I just turned around, and I had no idea where I was. And I was like, but I instinctively protected myself, and I ended up winning the fight. But it was the last fight I ever had. I was like, I'm done now. I'm good with that. So the end of my boxing career. Stuck with the acting.
The speed with which people are, the professionals are doing this is just utterly ridiculous. I remember studying martial arts, and I was with you know, my coach, who, you know, coached and trained Russian Spetsnaz you know, fighters, and you know, he was, by that time he was already, I think, in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. And definitely not anywhere as quick as he used to be, and we're kind of practicing, and you know, I'm getting good, I'm feeling it, I'm like, all right, so can you please kind of you know, punch, I'm going to try to block it. He's like, are you sure? I said, yeah, let's do it. And so something happened, I don't remember anything, because just I felt some sort of a wave, and something was really close to my face. Obviously, I blocked nothing, and I said, "Okay." And he said, "Just so you understand, this was at about a quarter of the speed that's normal, and I'm about 4 times slower than I used to be." I
Wow.
said, "Yeah, okay, got it." And then it was, I think, at that moment where I went from a martial arts practitioner to a martial arts enthusiast.
Yes, there you go. I get it. I get it.
So yeah, it's just, yeah, you're either doing this and this is your thing and you work at it and you become proficient at it, or you enjoy it and you love the art of it. And I'm definitely in that, second category. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with all of your projects. People, please follow Pancho. Well, where can they follow you? I think that would be a good question to ask right about now.
That's forthcoming. Like again, I've kind of been a little absent on
Yeah.
the social media world, but right now, at least I'm gonna start expanding my Instagram and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a little more active with that. So
Well, then everybody look for Pancho to open up an Instagram account and follow him there when he does.
I do have to, pick it
All
up.
right.
Yeah.
What's the handle that the people can follow?
It's P Dims.
PDIMS. All right, perfect. Then we'll place that right here. So follow him there. And everybody, again, thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We know how much you love actors, and we know how much you love the craft, and this is why we continue having these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.